This is episode 46 with BJ Domingo.
The biggest thing I think in sports that helps is just consistent conversation. Just talking to people, talking about the game, getting difference of opinions, and again, just taking little nuggets wherever you can get them, and then kind of putting it all together.
This is the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. If you recognize the voice, let me put a name with it. I'm Bo Estes, a host on NBA TV and an announcer on NBA.com, and I'm one of the instructors at SBC. Welcome to the show. Now, breaking into the world of sports can seem daunting, but if you're looking for a leg up, you've come to the right place. Each week, we talk to top-notch figures all across the industry to bring you lessons and advice to learn from. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and let the experience begin. Landing a job in the NBA is no easy feat, no matter if it's as a player, front office exec, agent, or even in the league offices. But one surefire way to put yourself ahead of a competitive talent pool is an extensive knowledge of the collective bargaining agreement. And Larry Kuhn is undoubtedly, and I can't stress this enough, undoubtedly the leading expert on planet Earth on the subject, and he's been teaching the material to teams, agents, media, and students now for over 20 years. And for the first time ever, he has an online course containing all of his material available for purchase to the general public. CBA Mastery with Larry Kuhn is available on demand with no expiration, so you'll have access to this material whenever you need it. To learn more and enroll, please visit sportsbusinessclassroom.com today. Do you love the game of basketball? Do you ever wonder what goes on in those moments leading up to making a selection in the NBA draft or at the trade deadline? If so, let us take you there. The Sports Business Classroom Draft Academy will take place March 15th through the 19th and provide attendees with an immersive experience like no other. This virtual event will bring together some of the top professionals and decision makers in sports and place attendees in the same scenarios executives face in pressure situations. Courses and event exercises will focus on free agency, the draft, trade deadline, player evaluation, salary cap, and much, much more. So here's your chance to prove you have what it takes. Invest in your future and sign up right now. Register at sportsbusinessclassroom.com. BJ Domingo's career ascension has been remarkable to track, but it's been a particular source of pride for us at Hall Pass. BJ was a part of our team for several years, dating all the way back to 2008, before launching off on an internship with the Golden State Warriors. From there, he jumped over to a staff role with the Milwaukee Bucks, eventually settling in as a scout before recently hopping on board with USA Basketball as the assistant director for the U.S. national team. Now, that sort of progress in a dozen years is clearly impressive. So how did he do it, and what has he learned? Sit back, relax, and enjoy the accumulated wisdom of BJ Domingo as he shares his story with us. All right, thanks so much, BJ, for joining us. And, we look at your entire career and what you've achieved right now, but I want to take you back a little bit and just have you tell me if you can remember when it was that you first fell in love with the game of basketball. What are your memories then?
I would say my first memory of kind of falling in love with the game was probably the 96 finals. That's my first recollection of the game. And I remember specifically the Jordan 11 bread shoe. I remember that, like, okay, wow, like those are really cool. And then I remember watching, like, it was around the playoffs. And I just remember like watching the game and like really enjoying it. And I remember seeing a commercial and it was like, oh, they're playing the same team again. And I'm like, Dad, why are they playing them again? Like, what's this thing? And it's like, oh, it's the playoffs. And so that was just like, wow, like eye-opening. So that's when it kind of started for me.
It's neat when that competitive clicks in your head, that little competitive nod clicks in your head, and it gets going, and you start to see the stakes of something. You feel it. I imagine you even look in your job now. You feel it too. I imagine it clicks on for you too. Still.
Oh yeah, you go through it, and even just like we've had 3 days of practice now, and like, I'm able to help out and do a bunch of different things, and so like, I've been helping out on the floor, and it brings me back to my days as an intern in Golden State. Wiping up the sweat, helping
Yeah.
skills. It's like it's great. Especially with the pandemic and everything going on. I've been inside 99% of the time, so being on the court, being able to help out, it's been great.
I'm gonna get to your job and just your new job in just a second. Just tell me, did you play ball at all? High school, anything?
Yeah, played in high school, did the AAU thing.
Yeah.
Played did I played did a little bit of AAU, played varsity in high school, played football, but it kind of stopped in college. Did like AAU and then intramurals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But that was pretty much
I
it.
knew I played. I was a sophomore in high school. Went to a summer camp in Tennessee, like a basketball camp, and ended up matching up against a guy we'd never heard of. His name was Anthony Hardaway. And I knew then, man, there's no future for me in this sport. So there are guys like that along the way where you go, well, that's not happening for me.
I remember that moment. Sorry, go ahead.
It's fun to be around him.
Oh no, absolutely. I kind of had that. I had that same moment early in high school too. It was like, I was pretty good in 8th grade. I'm feeling good about myself, and then you get to high school, and it's like, it's not gonna go the way I thought.
Yeah. Those hoop dreams sort of hit you in reality and in a big way. I want you to talk about your new job. I know what it is, and we've talked about it a little bit in the opening. But tell us about it. What are your responsibilities? What does a day look like for you?
So this is assistant director with USA Basketball. I mean, I'm doing a little bit of everything. So it's logistic work. Obviously it's still talent evaluating. But I think the biggest difference from what I was doing as a scout is, you're interacting with the families. You kind of, you're involved more in kind of directing conversations in terms of all aspects of junior national team. So it's great to kind of be a part of those conversations and really be able to give input.
It's interesting for me when you say assistant director for USA Basketball. Does that hit you too? I mean, it's really something, man.
No, it's I still have to pinch myself. It's like, I've been wanting to work in the business for so long and being able to work in it. It's just like, you always want to get in positions like this, but it's just, when you're in it, it's like, wow, it's extremely humbling and exciting all at the same time.
Do you feel like, I'm just projecting here, but I imagine that if I had the title of assistant director of USA Basketball, man, I'd feel like I got to get to work when I get in there. Like I've got to show myself. Do you feel that at all?
Oh, 1,000%. You feel like there's a sense of responsibility that you feel. It's like you want to do so well. And I think for me, like the biggest thing for me that I'm like most excited about is you get a chance to like, help the families navigate the difficult world of elite basketball. And so like I want to do a good job because I want to be able to help.
Like, what do you mean by that? How do you help them navigate it?
So I mean, so it's like, if it's a complicated business, at times, and so
sure.
Sometimes just in terms of kind of I want to put, not to get too specific, but like I'm worried about is my son scoring enough points? Is he doing enough of this? Is he doing enough of that? I think as a scout, I can kind of help gauge like, okay, these are the things that are more important. These are the things that you kind of need to focus on, stuff like that.
You know what? I think that you come from a position of trust in that too, because you've seen prospects make their way to the top. So they can look at you and say, this is a guy who's seen what it takes, right?
I think so. I think, and, it just takes experience. I think like, when you're able to kind of go through the draft process, like I've been able to kind of be in an NBA facility, you kind of just essentially, you know what it looks like, in certain aspects. And then you can hopefully you can help paint a clearer picture for the families as they kind of navigate.
Well, you mentioned coming from an NBA facility. We know you come from the Milwaukee Bucks, and if I have the story right, you are the specific one and the only one that told them to draft Giannis. Is that right?
Not exactly.
That whole thing, right?
Close, but not exactly. No, Giannis was actually. I got there his second year. I was in Golden State his rookie year.
So tell me about that. Tell me about like the process of going through a draft with an NBA team. What's the buildup like? What's the night like? And then what are the moments after like?
Okay, so obviously the buildup, it starts early. It's
Probably starts the day after the last draft, right?
pretty much. I mean, you get to summer league, and then you watch, and you can kind of get a gauge on like, okay, you get a feel for who's doing who. But in terms of like the following draft, that starts like as soon as the practices,
Yeah.
So you start going to the practices in early November, and I'm pretty much from November through late May. You're going from college. You're going from college to college. You're going from practices to games, and then kind of in the summertime, you get to go to different events. Sometimes it's agent workouts and the combine, but it's a lot of meetings along the way as well. It's constant communication. You have so many different names that you have to try to organize and put.
How do you organize that? How do you organize it?
Oof, there's no exact science. I would say, everybody kind of has their system. They put, added value in different categories. But I would say, each organization kind of have their direction that they want to go in, or maybe some of the things that they emphasize, or, maybe they want to fill a need. It kind of it's all situation based. And then you kind of, I think, depending on the situation, then you can kind of get the path from there.
What were some of your favorite parts about the Bucks gig, and what did you learn during your time in that organization?
I think for me, one of my favorite parts about being with the Bucks, I think definitely as a scout, getting to scout all nations, all levels nationwide. I think
so you racked up some miles.
Oh yeah, I got the gold on Delta pretty quickly. But I think just for me, it was great just to get that full perspective. I think a lot of scouts, are usually college or pro, or they kind of have a region. But I think being blessed with the opportunity to really get the whole picture about what's going on in the United States I think it was great for me.
What's funny is that those of us on the outside, we work in media. I go and look at, here's the top 10 prospects of each class, whatever that is. And it's whatever scouting service puts that together. And I see those scouts. I'm wondering if in your mind, man, that list is vastly different from my professional opinion, what I'm looking at. Is that fair?
Definitely. And for me personally, like I really only I'll look at those lists maybe in like September and August, just for names.
Here's a list of 50 names to look at.
Yeah. Just okay. Let me see where they have guys, just to kind of get a feel for the names that are out there as we kind of, embark on that long journey of trying to figure out who's supposed to go where in the NBA draft. But for me, I really try to stay away from that stuff. Just for your own mental. You don't want to get any extra influences. It's already hard enough to figure it out.
You're going to trust your own process. Is that what it really is?
Absolutely. You gotta do your homework. You got to do your homework again, and then trust your gut.
So take me through this. I'm curious to know, like, if let's pretend we're scouting a guy named Jim Brown. Whatever, he was a football player. We've never seen this guy. We know he is a top 10 player in the nation. We're going to show up at his high school tonight and watch him play.
Mm-hmm.
What, BJ, are you looking for? What are you looking at that the average fan who's there to see him do a 360 dunk isn't seeing?
Got you. So I think for me, when I'm going to see somebody that I haven't seen, the first thing I'm gonna look at, obviously you look at the size first. Okay, they say this guy's a point guard, or they say this guy's say it's a small forward. They say, then you kind of look and you gauge like, okay, whatever a person believes is what an NBA small forward is supposed to look like. You kind of project it to that and compare it to that.
Okay.
And then I think once you kind of analyze the tools, the just like the physical attributes, then you start looking at the athleticism, skill, and then the feel for the game, and then you start to track how it all comes together.
What's interesting for me is you've come along sort of at the very birth of this real 3-point revolution, where different skill sets are valued in a different way than they were in 2002. A 6'3" guy who didn't have a lot of athleticism but could shoot lights out in 2002 had some value. It wasn't none, but it's not the value it has today. Did that sort of mirror your time coming in, so you're really well adjusted to that, or did you even have to adjust to that?
I think I had to adjust a little bit, but like you said, I think what really helped was I got kind of my start with in terms of working with teams in Golden State. So like,
sure. Well,
I got a pretty good feel for how the three ball is supposed to work for those guys, and I think that was a huge advantage because I think the difference between them and what everybody else is trying to do with the three ball is that's what those guys do. That's their God-given ability. Yeah. If they're not shooting threes, they're giving the defense a break. Versus what I think happens a lot now is people just do it because they believe that that's the best thing to do, even though it's maybe not the best skill for that player. So I think it's a very fine line in my opinion, but it's great to see like, how it's kind of pushing the game because obviously, there's this formula that a lot of people use that they believe like this gives you the best chance to win.
Yep.
But again, you got to have the people who can do the job.
I assume you're involved in the projection business a lot. That's what scouting really is. So you look at a kid who is a 27% three-point shooter in high school, which isn't good enough. Are you looking at mechanics and fundamentals and saying, well, I think he can learn, or I think his path will let him learn? Is that something you're involved in?
Definitely. I'm definitely looking at the form. But for me, I think an underrated part about kind of evaluating shooting, in my opinion, is one, the pass. So sometimes if you're not getting the shot in the pocket or you're getting it by your ear or something where you got to move the ball a couple extra times, that's going to affect your shot. And that's not necessarily the shooter's fault, And then also, like you said, with the mechanics, some guys have a better command of the ball than others. And I think that can kind of help project really how they're going to be. It's kind of how well can you control the ball.
Does each scout have a unique style or eye? I mean, and also in that question, I ask, is it important for you to set yourself apart as a scout? Do you feel that need, or is your drive more, I'm just going to produce quality scouting and let the cards fall where they may?
I think to your first question, I mean, I think everybody definitely kind of has their own, I'm going to call it a formula or equation in terms of what they believe is going to translate. And I think a difference of opinion is extremely important because, it doesn't matter how good you feel you are as a scout, you're going to miss stuff. And I think, the more conversation you have, the more difference of opinion, I think can kind of put everything on the table. And then I think it's your job again as a scout to, once all that information is on the table, take what you feel you can use to improve your opinion and then kind of move the other stuff to the side.
So you've worked with Golden State and Milwaukee and now USA Basketball. How do you improve in your own work? Because I imagine you feel pressure because I know you want to keep growing your career. So what do you do on a daily basis to improve yourself?
I think in working in sports for me, the thing that helps me the most is one, doing my own research, kind of you watch games and whether it's learning about a player from, player's background or a player from the past or a coach from the past or a team from the past, just, I think every story there's at least a little nugget that you can take and move forward. But I think the biggest thing I think in sports that helps is just consistent conversation, just talking to people, talking about the game, getting difference of opinions. And again, just taking little nuggets wherever you can get them and then kind of, putting it all together.
I once sat with an NBA GM at a high school basketball game. We were watching a kid named BJ Boston, who I know you're probably familiar with. And the one thing that he pointed out that I never even thought of is he was really watching how that kid interacted with his teammates during a timeout. Was he supportive of them? And he came away really impressed with Boston, by the way. But is that sort of the extra details that you try to look at as well?
Absolutely. Because the character piece is just as important as the talent piece, adversity is going to hit, and you want to know how a guy is going to respond to it. I think the biggest thing also in sports is, it's a constant uphill climb. And then that means that no matter how good you are, there's going to be adversity. Like, for example, I think I saw something on Twitter today that said LeBron James is now, has the most turnovers of all time. But I mean, LeBron,
yeah.
he's one of the smartest players we've ever seen, one of the most gifted players we've ever seen. So I think, it's a fine line. It's something that you really have to just really figure out on your own.
Yeah, a stat like that to me means he's had the ball for a long time in his hands over a long career, and that means people trust him and respect him. You honestly don't have the most career turnovers unless you're a pretty darn good player.
Exactly.
You can't accumulate that many. You'd be out of the league if you were no good, right?
Yeah, you got to have a lot of years, a lot of touches.
Yeah. What's funny, I remember LeBron as a junior in high school, and that's probably a little bit before your time, but you probably were aware of him, surely. And they got that right. I mean, this is the guy he's certainly this century the highest rated high school player we've ever seen. There's been nobody like him. And it's tough to imagine a player living up to the hype like he has. That's fair, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things that's most incredible about him is the expectations that he had coming in at 18 and how he's surpassed it. I mean, way, way, way surpassed it. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done. I mean, even the play he had to end the first half yesterday in Denver. I mean, you're not supposed to be moving like that at 36.
You know what else he's got? It's a true thing. Old guy at the gym is a real thing. I remember being like 30, 32 and beating college players, and I wasn't nearly as good as them, but I had it up here, up in your head a little bit, and he's got it up there, always had, and even more now, and he's still physically ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that he's passed his plateau much at all, if he has.
I agree. I mean, I think now maybe the breaks aren't as good as they used to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still got the pace. He's still got the tempo. I mean, like you said, he's not slowing down much at all.
Oh man, no. So there's a kid out there who's 16 years old who looks at BJ Domingo and says, "Man, I want to do what he is doing in life." What are the steps, BJ, that you recommend for this young kid to start taking now so that he can follow your career path?
I think one of the biggest blessings that I had at that age was really knowing that I already kind of having a feel for what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And it's really hard for kids who are that young to kind of figure out what they want to do with their life. But I was lucky enough to kind of, been given this passion from a young age. So I would say to young kids, just really, really spend time figuring out what you're passionate about, and really trying to figure out what you want to do. And if you are able to kind of make that decision, or at least figure out where you want to start, put a lot of energy and patience at the same time into that.
That's an interesting comment, energy and patience, because that second part's key too, right?
Oh yeah, because it takes time to move up in sports. I started my journey in 2008 working in sports, and it's 2021 right now. And, I've been blessed with this great opportunity, but along the way, it's a roller coaster. There's going to be great days. There's going to be some frustrating days. I can think back to some days in Milwaukee, midnight on a Sunday, teams coming back from a road trip, and I'm digging parked cars out of snow.
Oh,
so it's a journey, but it's a lot of fun along the way if you have the right attitude about it.
You had a great quote that I read in researching about you. My ego is not my amigo. Tell me about that.
So that's not actually my quote.
I figured it was. It's so good. It's such a great quote. You should.
That's from Warren Laguerre.
Really? Okay.
That's one of the first things you learn on the first day, on the first meeting when you're getting ready to be an intern at Summer League.
And what does it mean to you?
So it means that it's not about you. There's a job that we have to do, and no job is too big for anybody. You have to, even if that means, picking up trash at the summer league, if it means watching a door or watching the elevator, you do what you have to do for the benefit of the event as a whole. And that's the attitude that you got to have.
Take me into the film room. I know you break down an absolute ton of film.
Yes,
Tell me
sir.
about that. That's a different thing than going to the game. Tell me about that process.
For sure. I think when you're watching film, I think you gotta be intentional in terms of what you're looking for. So I think for me, like when I'm watching guys, especially like if you're not seeing them for the first time, you kind of start getting a feel for like strengths and weaknesses. So for me, I really try to focus on progress. Okay, like if I'm watching a point guard, and okay, he's not doing a great job with the reads, that's something that I'm really looking at the details of reads. Okay, is he getting the ball out of his hands on time? Is in the pick and roll, is he reading that weak side low man correctly? And is he passing the ball to the correct person off the read? Sometimes, guys they can get in some trouble and make a decision, but there's a decision that is kind of at the premium.
Sure.
That's out there. That are they recognizing that premium option? Those kind of details.
Let me ask you this. So over time, you get a feel for player A and player B, and you say in your mind, I think player A is better for our organization. Is that where when you get into a draft room, you're making a pitch? Here's this player, here's these clips, and why? Or is your job as a scout? Here's film, watch film. You decide where's the balance there?
I think it's both. I think as you build up, I think when you're talking about like November, December, January, February, you're really just trying to get, okay, these are the best players. This is what they can do. If we're not even thinking, situation specific, and we just want to know who's the best players, I think that's kind of when that starts. But when you start getting to March, April, May, June, fit is everything. I think, fit is the starting point. This guy, he's a very talented player, but he's not going to fit here for reason A, B, or C.
And is it a sales process for you? How does that work? Like, are you saying, guys, here's my pick and here's why? Does that happen for you?
Sometimes I think when you're going through the draft process, you kind of create all those different scenarios. So sometimes the GM would be like, all right, so if you had the pick, in your opinion, who would you pick and why? Sometimes that's the question. Sometimes it's who's the best fit. Sometimes it's who's best available out of these group rank. So I think throughout the draft process, you put all those questions on the table. And I think basically, because as a scout, you're not really making specific personnel decisions. Your job is to, find as much information and kind of try to do your best to understand players to make the decision as easy as possible for the GM.
I want to sort of turn the tables because I imagine with as much as you put into planning and as deliberate as you seem to be, there's also a part of your brain that says, if I ever get that GM job, this is how I want to do it as well. Mm-hmm. So what would you want from your scouts as far as a balance between give me information and, man, I hired you for a reason. I trust your opinion. Tell me your darn opinion.
Yeah, I think for me, I want, if I'm lucky enough to get to that position, I would definitely want my scouts to one, I want them to have a lot of conversation. I would hopefully a lot of heated arguments.
That's good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difference maker, to be honest, because you have to put. I think it's important to get all the information that you believe out there. Just put it all on the table, good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah. If we got to call a timeout in the meeting and separate a couple of people, I think that's only for the better.
Yeah, sure. Bring the refs in, call some technicals.
Exactly.
So I want to. I don't want to know wrong, but I do want. Do you feel there is a player or two that, in your experience, you look back on and you say, "Man, I really got that one right. I really feel good about that one. That's when I did something right."
For sure. I think first person that comes to mind is John Conchar.
Oh yeah.
So I remember watching
like him.
So I watched him play as a freshman at Fort Wayne, and just you see a guy who's 6'5", who has an unbelievable feel for the game. You know, he can make the catch and shoot three. He's athletic. He defends. To me, he was just a guy who just consistently made winning plays. He's got great size for position and is an athlete. So I think that combination of stuff, I just believe gave him a good chance to be at least a solid NBA player, a guy who could kind of fit in the environment and make the decisions that needed to be made.
You felt good about that one.
Feel really good about that one. That's one I'm very proud about.
Is there any others that spring to mind? That's the first one that clearly came to your mind. You were smiling.
Yeah, for sure. No, because that was as an intern. You know, I wasn't even in the front office then. I wasn't even in the front office when I found that one. But I would say another one, Jordan Clarkson. I was pretty high on him at Missouri. Just, you know, the size, love the way he could score the ball. That's another early one. Let me think of another one.
That's a fun thing, though, right? To be early on somebody.
Oh, that's the best feeling as a scout. Feeling as a scout.
Because you feel like it's almost like you've discovered something.
Exactly. You feel like you've broken the code, you know. But I think from
that must be one of the best feelings.
Oh, for sure. You know, it's
something.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, what it does is it's great for your confidence because, you know, like for me, I'm very intentional about like why I believe in certain guys and why I put certain guys there. So if I hit on a guy, it's because I've whatever path I followed has helped me, and I know I can continue to use that equation or whatever you want to call it, you know, for further evaluation. But I'll give you one more before we change. A guy from this past year's draft, Halliburton. I loved him.
Oh my God!
Almost like, you know, first or second time I saw him, just the feel for the game, but just the positive energy he brings on the floor. You know, like a guy. You know, at the time, he was the freshman around like older guys, a lot of guys who wanted to take shots, but you know, he was a guy who was supposed to redshirt, but he was so good that they couldn't redshirt him. And then not only could they not redshirt him, but he led the team in minutes per game. You know,
some people get it up here so well that it translates on the court.
Yeah, and just the way he makes guys around him better. You know, it's one thing to throw a pass, but it's another thing to throw it with a flair, on time, on target. You know, like that stuff does stuff for the people around him. And I think that's the type of energy that can go a long way, especially in the NBA.
His energy lifts a squad, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it really does.
He's big time.
I don't want you to name names, but are there players that you feel like you've missed on? And if so, what did you learn in that experience?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I can be honest. I'm okay with saying my misses. I would say one miss was definitely Jason Tatum for me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously, I knew he was a lottery pick.
Sure.
You know, but I mean,
you didn't think regular all-star, that sort of
exactly. I didn't think that he would be what he is right now. And I think the part that I fell short in on the process with him was I didn't spend enough time looking at the person that he was. You know, like looking at his background. You know, when you realize, you know, the story of like, you know, his stuff with his mother in law school with him and all that type of stuff. And just, you know, the person he is through all his interviews and that stuff. I didn't spend enough time looking at that, and so I think that was part of the reason why I missed.
You refine your process after that, right?
Absolutely. I definitely got better as a result of it.
And that in your mind is like, Jason Tatum, I need to go back and check with this next guy, right?
For sure. Thank you, Jason Tatum.
Exactly. Are there any technologies that you're using in your job? I imagine there's some software for the way that you put together clips and stuff like that. What do you use to make yourself better at work technology-wise?
Technology-wise, honestly, I keep it simple. You know, I'm a hoop one and synergy guy. You know, I really like to take the time and I watch full games. You know, there was a time when I did the clips, but I feel like for me, nothing's been more productive than just grinding it out and watching those games beginning to end.
Yeah. And then last thing I want to ask you, I'm building my reading list. I've seen some of your reads. Is there anything you've read recently that you want all of our listeners to know about that's a good book that you've either enjoyed, can be just straight enjoyed, or has been helpful for you? Because we've had a lot of time in the pandemic to think and sit and enjoy.
Well, I've read a few. I would say the best book I read so far during the pandemic, the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Just a great American story. I mean, I think
were there parts of that made you go, "Oh, I didn't know that"? Like, was there stuff in there?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how rough he had it growing up.
Yeah,
just really just trying to essentially, he had to navigate so much without his parents.
Yeah.
And then just, obviously the transition from Lansing to Boston, from Boston to Harlem, obviously when he went going to prison and then, everything after that. But just, the amount that he had to figure out on his own, I think is unbelievable. And I think it was just a very, very, very well-read book, just a very unique perspective on life, just a very interesting person.
I think that's one of those where like people think they know the story, but when you dig into the details, man, there's a whole lot more there. There's a whole lot more there.
Absolutely. And it's just an opportunity to learn about a perspective. I think, obviously he's got a story that's not told much. And I think that everybody could benefit from really learning it.
I don't think it's well understood either. I think there's like a flashcard belief of who he is. Like you say Malcolm X and people have a reaction. There's a lot more to it. There's so many more details, so many more layers to it. Yeah. Just in my opinion, I read that book maybe in college. So it's been a while for me, but I remember coming away with that feeling.
Yeah, I think I'm most impressed because of the journey. You think, most, at least for me, before reading the book, you really only know about the stuff about him as a Muslim, but when you learn about the buildup to that, I think that's what really takes it to another level.
I want to ask you one more thing before I let you go. How has COVID impacted your work?
Honestly, I think it's helped me because what I did in the pandemic was, what NBA TV, the Hardwood Classics.
Oh yeah, I used to host those.
Oh yeah, so I mean, if it was on, I watched it. And I think getting a chance to watch those old games was great for me. Just, you hear about Larry Bird, but when you can watch 15 Larry Bird games, then you really get to understand. You know
what? There are some players that are timeless. And I say that about Steph Curry going back, put him in any era. LeBron going back any era. Bring Magic Johnson forward today. Bring Larry Bird forward today. Any era. There are players that are timeless, and Bird falls into that category. Look, I was a Lakers fan as a kid, and he killed me 1,000 times. Yeah. But man, he was something.
Yeah, he got obviously people know who Larry Bird is, but man, he's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah,
but definitely not 10 people who have done it better than him.
Nah, I saw a story last night where he said he was bored and he wanted to score left-handed. So he played a game left-handed and got 46 points, basically getting buckets left. That's skill.
Unbelievable.
Well, safe travels for you, first of all. I hope things work out this year for you guys. I hope the pandemic clears up and you guys are able to execute your plan fully. And I look forward to seeing your career develop. And I can't wait till we have this chat again when you're a GM. So you're going to come back.
Sound good? Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Take care, BJ.
All right.
Thanks so much to BJ Domingo of USA Basketball for joining us. What a remarkable career he has started for himself. And speaking of good news, we've got good news. Our numbers are up on the Sports Business Classroom audio experience, and we have you to thank for that. So we want to continue our success, and we want to have you along for the ride. So to do that, we need you to like and subscribe to the podcast and send us any feedback if you can. Also, 5 stars if you have enjoyed the experience. Get in touch with me. I'm at NBA Bo. That's NBABEAU, or Sports Biz Class, at Sports Biz Class on Twitter. Either way, we'll get back with you. We'll stay in touch, and we'll keep this train moving forward. Thanks so much for listening.